My name is Mark. I'm 48 years old. I've worked as an industrial electrician for over 2 decades. I fix things for a living, and I thought I had fixed my life, too. I married Julia when we were both 31. She was calm. Smart. The kind of woman who didn't talk too much, didn't ask for anything extravagant. We had a quiet wedding, nothing fancy, just close family, a backyard grill, and the promise that we'd build something real. And for a while, we did. We bought a modest house in western Pennsylvania. I wired the place myself. Put in new floors. Built her a home office even though she was still figuring out what she wanted to do. She ended up in real estate, not because she loved houses, but because she loved people. Or at least, she was good at pretending. We had our routine. Weekends at the local diner. Sunday football, her pretending to care about my team. Quiet nights watching reruns of Frasier or The Office. It was the kind of life that doesn't make headlines, but felt solid. Like it could last. Until things started feeling off. It began subtly. Julia started locking her phone. Now, I'm not the jealous type. I've never gone through her messages. But after 17 years together, you notice when a person changes their patterns. She used to leave her phone on the kitchen counter when she showered. Now, it went with her. Everywhere. Even into the bathroom. She started working late. Clients, she'd say. Last-minute showings. But I noticed she stopped mentioning names. Before, she'd tell me about the couples she was working with. Their budgets. Their preferences. No. Nothing. Just vague comments and a kiss on the cheek as she grabbed her keys. I asked her once, gently, if everything was okay. She laughed. Said I was being paranoid. That she was just tired. That the market was crazy lately. Then she kissed me harder than usual and disappeared for the night. That kiss stayed with me. Because it felt forced. Like she was trying to erase something with it. One night, I got home early. Job site shut down due to equipment failure. It was 3:30 p.m. Her car wasn't in the driveway. That didn't bother me, yet. I grabbed a beer, sat on the back porch, and watched the wind move through the trees. At 4:15, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She had forgotten it. That never happened. I swear, that woman treated her phone like a third lung. I stared at it for a moment. Just a buzz. Nothing more. Then another buzz. And another. I stepped inside. The screen lit up again, a preview message from someone saved as T. No last name. Just T. Can't stop thinking about last night. You looked amazing in red. My chest tightened. I stared at it. The kind of stare where everything else goes quiet, even your own breathing. I didn't open the message. I didn't need to. I just stood there. In my own kitchen. In the house I built. With the phone I paid for. Reading a message meant for the woman I thought I knew. I put the phone down. Back where she left it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to know more. So I waited. Over the next week, I played it cool. Smiled when she came home. Cooked dinner. Watched shows with her. Acted like everything was normal. Meanwhile, I bought a small black dash camera with motion detection. I installed it behind a vent near the garage. She never noticed. Friday came. She left at 6:30 p.m. for a late showing. She was wearing the red dress. I watched from the upstairs window as a dark grey Audi pulled up. She got in. They drove off. The next morning, I pulled the SD card and plugged it into my laptop. There it was. She kissed him. Right there in our driveway. Hands on his face. Lips pressed like she'd been starving. I paused the footage. Rewound. Played it again. I needed to be sure it wasn't a greeting. It wasn't. It was full-on intimacy. She never kissed me like that when she left for work. And then, they drove away. I sat back in my chair. Silent. That's when the plan started forming. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to sit at the table like some sitcom husband asking, why? I was going to do what I do best, build something. Something permanent. Something she wouldn't see coming. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, next to her, pretending to be asleep. She came home around 11:40 p.m. Quietly. No makeup. Hair slightly messed up. She slipped under the covers like she'd just come back from church. I heard her breathing. Slow. Calm. I wanted to believe it was guilt. But I knew better. The next morning, I acted like nothing happened. Made her coffee, 1 sugar, no cream, the way she likes it. We sat at the kitchen table. She scrolled her phone. I scrolled nothing. Just watched her, out of the corner of my eye. Looking for a twitch. A pause. Anything. But she smiled. She looked happy. That made it worse. Over the next few days, I started collecting data. Quietly. Calmly. I took her car in for brakes and installed a tracker underneath the wheel well. Waterproof. Invisible unless you're crawling under the car with a flashlight. I checked her laptop while she was in the shower. She wasn't stupid, cleared her browser history. But her email? She forgot to log out. There it was. A chain of emails between her and T. Thomas. Married. 2 kids. A regional manager for a logistics company. They met at a networking event 6 months ago. Apparently, he saw something in her the moment they shook hands. I read every word. The dinners. The hotels. The excuses. She told him she was in a loveless routine. That I didn't understand her anymore. That I never asked how she felt. T. I've worked long hours for years to give her this life. I built this house from studs and concrete. I gave her everything I had. And she handed it to a stranger in a hotel suite with room service and blackout curtains. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was focused. It was time to move pieces. First move, the finances. We had a joint savings account with around $42,000. Most of it from my last project, a commercial renovation upstate. She hadn't contributed much in the past year. Real estate was slow, she claimed. I opened a separate account at a different bank. Quiet. Private. No online access, in person only. Then, I slowly began transferring money. Not all at once. A few hundred here. 1,000 there. Every time she was working late, I was in line at the bank, moving what I earned. Next move, the house. The title was in both our names. But I still had the original deed. My buddy, Greg, is a real estate attorney. I scheduled a meeting with him on my lunch break. Explained the situation. Asked what I could do without tipping her off. He gave me the playbook. Legal. Clean. No red flags. That night, I made her dinner. Chicken Alfredo, her favorite. She smiled. Something smells good, she said. I nodded. You, I said. She laughed. Charmer. We ate together. We watched TV. She laid her head on my shoulder. Said, "You're so good to me." I almost laughed. Almost. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of smiling. Cooking. Kissing her forehead every morning. 3 weeks of me becoming a ghost in my own house. But the pieces were set. I had banked enough evidence to crush her if it went to court. I had recordings. GPS logs. Hotel confirmations. Even screenshots of messages she thought were deleted. I wasn't planning to use them, unless she tried to screw me on the way out. She didn't know yet, but I was 2 steps ahead. One Friday, around 6 p.m., she came down in that same red dress. Said she had a closing dinner with a client. I said, "You look beautiful." She kissed my cheek and left. I waited 10 minutes. Then got in my truck and followed the tracker on my phone. They met at a steakhouse downtown. I parked across the street. Watched them walk in together. He held the door for her. Touched the small of her back. She laughed. That same fake laugh she used on new clients when she wanted them to trust her. I waited until they were seated. Then I took a picture of them through the front window. Clear. Crisp. Him holding her hand across the table. That was all I needed. I went home. Pulled the laptop from the safe. Opened a new PowerPoint presentation. Titled it, How I Spent My Summer. I added photos. Emails. The GPS trail. The dinner date photo from tonight. Each slide was labeled by date. I even added dramatic music to the background. Something soft, piano, haunting. Then, I waited. She came home at 10:58 p.m. I was in the living room. TV on mute. Laptop on the coffee table. I looked up at her. She looked tired. How was dinner? I asked. She smiled. Exhausting. Client was a talker. I nodded. Glad you home. She headed upstairs. I waited 10 minutes. Then I followed. She was brushing her teeth. I stood in the doorway. She looked up at me in the mirror. What? She said, mouth full of foam. I held up the laptop. I made you something. She wiped her mouth. Hi. I opened the screen. She stared. Slide 1, her kissing Thomas in our driveway. Slide 2, a GPS map of her car. Slide 3, emails. Slide 4, a steakhouse photo. Slide 5, a blank slide with one sentence. I know everything. Her face turned white. She didn't speak for a full 30 seconds. Just stared at the screen. Frozen. Eyes wide. Hands trembling. Then she finally said it. What is this? Her voice cracked. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to feel the silence. The weight of it. I took a slow breath. Then looked her in the eye. It's your life. On slideshow. She blinked. Mark. I don't know what this is. I think. Stop, I said. My voice was calm. But she stopped. Exactly when I told her to. I clicked the next slide. A screenshot of her telling Thomas. Sometimes, I wish Mark would just disappear. She gasped. Covered her mouth. I stayed quiet. Next slide, a video. Her getting into his car. In the red dress. Laughing. Smiling. I let the video play for a few seconds. Then closed the laptop. She didn't move. Just stared at the table. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "How long have you known?" I leaned against the wall. Long enough to make a plan. That's when the tears started. Real? Fake? Didn't matter. Too late. She reached out across the table. "Mark, please. I messed up." "I know." But it didn't mean anything. I laughed. Not loudly. Not cruelly. Just enough to cut through her words. Oh, it meant something. Every dinner. Every hotel. Every time you told him I didn't see you. She stood up. Started pacing. Hands in her hair. Muttering. It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking. I felt invisible, and he listened to me. You don't listen anymore. I nodded slowly. Like I'd heard it all before. Because I had. Dozens of times. From friends. Co-workers. Online. The script never changed. She paused. Looked at me. "I want to fix this." I smiled. Not because I believed her. But because I already had my answer. "I don't." She froze. Like someone hit her in the stomach. "What?" I picked up the laptop. Closed it gently. "I'm not staying. I'm not arguing. I'm not going to counseling. I'm not waiting for you to cheat again." She stepped toward me. "Please. I'll end it. I'll block him. I'll do whatever it takes." "No," I said. Calm. Final. "You already did what mattered. You showed me who you are." Silence. Thick. Like fog in the room. Then I walked upstairs. Packed a single duffel bag. Just essentials. Some clothes. My tools. Passport. That was it. When I came back down, she was sitting on the couch. Staring into nothing. I dropped the keys on the table. "These are yours now." She looked up. Eyes red. Face pale. "Where will you go?" I shrugged. "Anywhere but here." I headed for the door. She stood up. Rushed toward me. "Mark, wait." I stopped. Looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 17 years. The woman I'd built a home with. Grown old with. Trusted with everything. I looked her dead in the eyes. And said one last thing. "You had a good man. And you traded him for motel sheets and lies. I hope it was worth it." Then I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. Didn't cry. I just left. I stayed at a friend's house for a few days. Told him I needed space. He didn't ask questions. Didn't need to. People can feel when something breaks. You don't have to explain. I went back to the bank. Closed the joint account. Transferred the last of my funds. She never noticed. She was too busy texting Thomas. I know because I kept the tracker active. They met again. 3 days after I left. Different hotel. Different city. She didn't even wait a week. That told me everything I needed to know. Greg, the attorney, helped me file for divorce the following Monday. I attached all the evidence. Made it easy. Undeniable. Irreversible. I told him I wanted no contact. No second chances. No negotiations. She didn't fight it. I think deep down, she knew she'd lost. Not just a husband, but the version of herself she pretended to be. 2 months later, the divorce was final. She got the house. I let her have it. I didn't want the memories. She kept trying to reach out. Voicemails. Emails. Even a handwritten letter. I didn't respond. She even came by my friend's house once. Knocked on the door. He told her I wasn't home. I was. I just didn't move. Didn't breathe. Listened to her on the porch crying. Begging. I made a mistake. But the thing about mistakes? They only matter when they are not repeated. She repeated hers. Twice. Maybe more. I don't care anymore. I bought a small cabin near the lake. Quiet. Far from the noise. I fix old motors for local folks now. Work with my hands. Eat alone. Sleep like a rock. And sometimes, I sit by the water. Think about the years I lost. And the man I almost became. A man who forgave betrayal. Who let it slide. Who stayed. But that's not me. Not anymore. I'm Mark. I know my worth now. And I don't bargain with liars. I thought it was over. I really did. The divorce was final. The house was hers. I moved out. Cut contact. Blocked her number. Started over. But people like Julia? They don't let go. Not because they love you, but because they hate losing control. It started small. A voicemail from an unknown number. I know you hate me, but please, call me. Delete. Then a letter. No return address. But I knew her handwriting. Inside, a picture. The two of us, 10 years ago, smiling at the lake. On the back, she wrote, "We were happy once. You can't pretend that didn't matter." I burned it. Not out of hate. Out of clarity. Because I finally understood something. She wasn't missing me. She was missing the version of herself that I made possible. The stable life. The comfort. The man who never doubted her, even when he should have. That's what she wanted back. Not the marriage. The mirror. 2 weeks passed. Quiet. Until Greg called. The attorney. He sounded annoyed. Said Julia was trying to dispute the asset split. That she claimed I had pressured her during the divorce. Said she wanted a reevaluation. Of everything. I laughed. Then I told him something simple. Let her try. Because what she didn't know was that I still had more. More evidence. More footage. More leverage. I never used it in court. Didn't need to. But if she wanted to drag me back into the mud? I was ready. I went back to the safe. Pulled out the backup drive. Plugged it in. There it was. Phone logs. Voicemails. One in particular stood out. A message from Thomas, the lover. He left it at 2:13 a.m. Hey, I'm not comfortable with this anymore. You said your husband wouldn't find out, and now I'm getting weird messages. This isn't what I signed up for. I smiled. Then checked the timestamp. It was 2 days after the slideshow. So she tried to keep him. Even after I left. Even after everything. She still wanted him. I called Greg back. Told him to let her file her dispute. Told him I'd respond through the proper channels. But also told him to be ready. Because if she pushed, I'd push harder. He understood. He's known me for years. He knows I'm not the kind of man to bluff. A few days later, I get a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to it after dinner. It wasn't Julia. It was Thomas. He sounded desperate. Look, man. I didn't know she was married when we first started. I swear. I wouldn't have done it if I knew. I thought you should know, she's trying to drag me into this court thing. Said I misled her. I don't want anything to do with it. I paused. Then hit record on my own phone. I called him back. Short conversation. Polite. Direct. I told him I had no interest in him. No reason to come after him. As long as he stayed out of it. He agreed. I saved the call. Just in case. 2 days later, Julia showed up. At my cabin. Uninvited. It was around 7:30 p.m. I had just finished dinner. Heard her car on the gravel. She knocked. I opened the door halfway. She looked worn out. Tired. Not in a fake way. In a life is hitting me back way. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't move. Just stared at her. She looked down. I made a mistake, Mark. You know I did. But this isn't fair. You left me with nothing. I raised an eyebrow. Nothing? You got the house. The car. Most of the furniture. She shrugged. That's not what I mean. What do you mean, Julia? She looked up. Eyes already wet. I mean. I lost you. I paused. Let that hang in the air. Then said softly. No. You gave me away. She stepped forward. Tried to come in. I didn't let her. She stopped. I didn't think you'd actually leave, she said. That one hit me. Not because it hurt. But because it showed the truth. She thought I was weak. Predictable. Forgiving. She thought I'd beg. Cry. Break. But I didn't. I planned. And I left. Now she stood in front of me, seeing the man she misjudged. And she hated it. She reached into her purse. Pulled out a small envelope. I wrote you something, she said. I took it. Didn't open it. Just held it. Then I looked at her one last time. You made your choice, Julia. And now, you live with it. Don't come here again. I closed the door. Locked it. Went back to the kitchen. Made tea. Didn't read the letter. Didn't need to. She said everything already, in the lies, the messages, the red dress. Words can't fix what betrayal destroys. Only time can. And even then, the cracks stay. Later that night, I went outside. Sat by the lake. Watched the moon reflect off the water. The air was still. Quiet. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Real peace. Not comfort. Not numbness. But something clean. Clear. And I realized something. I didn't just lose a wife. I found myself. And I like the man I found. A week passed. No calls. No letters. No knocks on the door. Just silence. I thought maybe she'd finally accepted it. That I was gone. that she had burned the bridge too far. But I was wrong. It was just the quiet before the next storm. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in town, picking up parts for a generator. The lady at the shop, Nancy, knew me well. She handed me a package and said, "You've got a visitor outside." I looked through the glass. And there she was. Julia. Leaning on her car. Wearing sunglasses, like she was hiding behind them. I didn't go out right away. I took a breath. Told Nancy I'd be back later. Then stepped outside. She took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were swollen. Either from crying. Or trying to make it look like she had. She opened her mouth. But I cut her off. "Make it quick, Julia." She nodded. "I just need 5 minutes." We sat on a bench outside the store. Birds chirping. People walking by. She kept looking down at her hands. Twisting her fingers. "I filed a withdrawal," she said. I looked at her. "What kind?" She swallowed. "I'm dropping the dispute. The asset thing. All of it." I didn't answer. Just waited. She kept going. I talked to Thomas. I raised an eyebrow. She hesitated. "He told me you called him." I nodded. She looked embarrassed. "He said you were calm. Polite. Said you told him to stay out of it." I shrugged. "That's the truth." She sighed. "I think that's when it hit me." I glanced sideways. "When what hit you?" She stared at the ground. "That I ruined the only man who ever treated me with respect." That line. I'll admit. It landed. Not because I needed to hear it. But because I never thought she'd say it. Still. I didn't flinch. Didn't soften. I just sat there. Still. Unmoved. She continued. "I wanted to hurt you, Mark. After you left. I was angry. Embarrassed. I didn't know how to handle it." I nodded slowly. "But now. I don't want to fight anymore." Silence again. She reached into her bag. Pulled out a small box. Set it between us. "I was going to mail it," she said. I looked inside. It was the wedding ring. The one I gave her 17 years ago. She whispered. "I don't deserve to keep it." I stared at the ring. The metal looked dull now. Worn. Like everything else between us. I closed the box. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything. Just placed it in my coat pocket. Not to keep. But to bury later. Somewhere far away. She stood up. Straightened her coat. "I won't come back again." I looked up at her. "I hope not." She nodded. Then walked to her car. Didn't look back. Didn't wave. Just drove off. For real this time. That night, I sat on the porch. Held the box in my hand. The moon was high. The wind soft. I opened the box again. Looked at the ring. And I finally let myself say it. Out loud. To no one. I did love her. Because it was true. I did. Deeply. Fully. But love isn't enough when trust is gone. It never is. The next morning, I took a drive. 30 miles out. To an old trail we used to walk when things were still good. I hiked for an hour. Then found a tree overlooking the valley. And I buried the ring there. 6 inches deep. No marker. No words. Just the sound of dirt covering metal. And with that, it was done. I've been alone ever since. By choice. I get up early. Work with my hands. Fix what's broken. Then go to bed with a clear mind. Sometimes, people ask if I'll ever date again. Start over. Maybe. Maybe not. I'm not looking. But I'm not closed either. I just know this. If it ever happens again, it won't be because I'm lonely. It'll be because I find someone who values honesty more than attention. Someone who knows that loyalty is a choice you make when no one's watching. Someone who understands what forever is supposed to mean. Until then, I'm fine. Better than fine. I'm free. 3 months passed. No calls. No letters. No more surprises. Just life. Simple. Quiet. Predictable. Exactly what I wanted. I started rebuilding a boat engine for a neighbor. Got into hiking. Stopped checking the review mirror. And for the first time in years, I actually smiled without forcing it. But peace doesn't last forever. Especially when your past isn't finished with you. It started with a text. Blocked number. No name. Just 6 words. You should know what she did. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't respond. Didn't need to. But something about it stayed with me. The tone. The way it wasn't asking. It was warning. Later that night, I checked my old email. Hadn't opened it in weeks. There it was. An anonymous message. No sender. No signature. Just a link. And one sentence. Your ex-wife's games aren't over. I didn't click it. Not right away. I sat back in my chair. Let the silence fill the room. The air felt heavier. Like something was about to shift. Finally. I clicked. It was a PDF. Court documents. Filed 2 weeks ago. A name I didn't recognize. A man, claiming Julia had promised him part of the house. He was suing. Said they had an oral agreement. That she told him I abandoned her. That the property was shared. I felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't just a lie. This was premeditated. Calculated. It wasn't over. Not yet. I forwarded the file to Greg. Added one sentence. Looks like the past isn't done. He called me an hour later. Voice calm. But serious. This is bad, he said. She's using someone else to reopen everything. I nodded slowly. She knows she can't touch me directly, I said. Greg sighed. Exactly. So she found someone who can. I leaned back. Can we fight it? He didn't pause. Absolutely. But it's going to get messy. I spent the next 2 days gathering every document I had. Property records. Text logs. Email threads. I still had them. All of them. Not because I was obsessed. But because I knew the game wasn't over. People like Julia don't lose quietly. They try to rewrite the story. To come out looking like the victim. Then I got another message. This time, from Thomas. Yes. That Thomas. I didn't recognize the number. But the message made it clear. She's trying to drag me into this again. She's threatening to expose private stuff if I don't back her claim. I'm done. Just thought you should know. I stared at the screen. So now she was blackmailing the guy she cheated with? I couldn't even feel surprised anymore. Just tired. Tired of the manipulation. The chaos. The same cycle on repeat. But this time, she picked the wrong man to mess with. Again. I met with Greg the next morning. In person. We went over everything. Built a response. A full package. With affidavits. Screenshots. Signed timelines. Even testimony from Thomas, who, surprisingly, agreed to go on record. Said he wanted to clear his name. Said he was sick of being her puppet. I believed him. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because he had finally tasted the same poison. Greg filed the countersuit by Friday. Official. Cold. Precise. And with it, we requested a cease and desist order. If Julia continued using third parties to harass or manipulate me, she'd face legal consequences. Real ones. Not emotional guilt. Not whispered lies. But courtroom facts. Documented. Undeniable. Permanent. That weekend, I drove to the lake again. Same spot. Same quiet. I sat on the bench with a thermos of coffee. Watched the wind move across the water. Thought about the version of me from a year ago. The man who built a life for someone who destroyed it. The man who stayed silent when lies piled up. The man who thought walking away was enough. Now I knew better. Sometimes you don't just walk away. Sometimes, you have to defend the exit. The case was dismissed 3 weeks later. Greg called with a short laugh. She didn't even show up. Turns out, the guy who filed the claim disappeared too. Dropped it. No explanation. Just vanished. I didn't need to ask why. I already knew. She used him. Then left him to take the fall. Pattern repeated. One more time. I haven't heard from her since. No texts. No letters. No surprise visits. Nothing. Maybe she finally ran out of moves. Maybe the silence is real this time. But I don't care. Because now, I'm not afraid of her shadow. I faced it. Fought it. Buried it. And now? Now I live in the light again. Not perfect. Not healed. But whole. On my own terms. Life settled again. For real this time. No texts. No threats. No legal drama. Just silence. And I was okay with that. More than okay. I was finally breathing at my own pace. No one watching the clock. No one lying with a smile. No more walking on eggshells in my own home. I spent my mornings fixing engines. Afternoons walking through the woods. Evenings with a book and a warm drink. Nothing fancy. Just peace. But peace has a way of feeling empty, sometimes. Not lonely. Just quiet. Too quiet. One Thursday morning, I stopped by the hardware store. I needed sandpaper, oil, a few bolts for the boat frame. The usual. That's where I saw her. She was talking to the cashier. Laughing. Not loudly. Not in that way people laugh when they want to be heard. No. It was a calm laugh. Honest. She wore jeans, boots, a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow. Her hair was tied back. No makeup. Just real. I stood there, watching for a second too long. She caught me. Smiled. I nodded politely. started to walk past. But she stopped me. "Excuse me," she said. "You Mark, right? You helped Ray with his generator last fall?" I turned. Surprised. "Yeah. That's me." She held out her hand. "I'm Claire. I live out by Cedar Ridge. My neighbor mentioned you fixed engines." I shook her hand. Firm grip. Warm. "I do," I said. "Mostly old boats these days." She smiled. "Perfect. I've got an outboard motor that's been collecting dust since April." We ended up talking in the parking lot for 20 minutes. She wasn't trying to impress. She didn't flirt. She just talked. And I listened. Not like I used to. Not with suspicion or hidden questions. Just listened. Because something about her voice felt different. Grounded. She wasn't looking for rescue. Or validation. She was just living her life. Same as me. The next week, I drove out to her place. A small cabin. Simple. Well cared for. She showed me the motor. We stood on her dock while I looked it over. Turns out, the issue was basic. Fuel line was clogged. She laughed. I figured it was something dumb. I smiled. Happens more than you'd think. She brought out lemonade. We sat under the porch awning as it started to drizzle. No pressure. No small talk for the sake of sound. Just quiet, that didn't feel empty. And when I left, she didn't say, "Call me." She just said, "Thanks for coming out. If you ever need a place to watch the sunset, this dock's open." I didn't go back for 2 weeks. Not because I didn't want to. But because I wasn't sure I was ready. I was still untangling the echoes of a 17-year lie. Still making peace with silence. But that second week? I found myself walking toward the truck. Keys already in hand. No big decision. No dramatic music. Just a pull. So I went. She was out back, splitting firewood. Didn't see me at first. I watched her for a minute. Strong. Focused. No audience. No performance. Just doing what needed to be done. That hit me harder than I expected. She saw me. Waved. "I've got cold tea inside." I followed her in. And that's how it started. Not with a kiss. Not with a dinner date. But with firewood and cold tea. We started seeing each other once a week. No labels. No expectations. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we just sat by the fire and let the silence stretch as far as it wanted. And for the first time in a long time, that silence didn't scare me. She never asked about Julia. Not once. Not even a hint. And that, more than anything, made me trust her. Because she wasn't trying to fix me. Or compare herself. She was just there. Fully. Present. And that was enough. More than enough. One night, we sat by the water. The stars were out. Sky clear. She leaned back on the dock, legs crossed, tea in hand. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You don't look like a man who's trying to be happy. You look like a man who finally stopped pretending." I let that sit. Let it echo. Then I said, "You're right." She nodded. Didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. Because some truths don't need applause. They just need air. Fall came early that year. The leaves turned gold before September was even halfway done. Mornings got colder. Nights, quieter. And me? I finally felt like I'd arrived somewhere. Not just physically, but emotionally. Internally. Like I had walked all the way through hell. And somehow made it to the other side. Claire and I kept it simple. No big speeches. No talk of forever. Just firewood. Coffee. Boat engines. Quiet dinners where no one was lying. No one was hiding. No one was performing for the sake of approval. We never said we were a couple. We never had to. It just became true. Like seasons. Like sunrise. One morning, she brought over a book. Said, "You strike me as the kind of man who likes to read slowly." She was right. I do. I read it in pieces. Paragraph by paragraph. Never rushing. Savoring the words. Not because I was afraid of the ending. But because I had learned something most people never do. That good things don't need to be chased. They stay. If they are real. Sometimes, I still think about Julia. Not often. But when I do, it's not anger anymore. It's distance. She's a chapter. A closed one. Not erased. But shelved. Marked with everything I learned. What trust means. What lies look like. And what self-respect feels like, once you finally claim it. I never texted her again. Never called. She never tried again either. Maybe she moved on. Maybe she didn't. Doesn't matter. Because I did. In the way that counts. Not by jumping into someone new. Not by trying to win the breakup. But by coming home to myself. Fully. Quietly. Permanently. Now, I wake up early. Still make coffee the same way. Still fix what's broken. But the man doing those things? He's different now. Sharper. Stronger. Not bitter. But better. Because sometimes, life doesn't give you justice. It gives you clarity. And if you're lucky, that's enough. Claire's dog sleeps on my porch most nights now. She's here more often than not. Sometimes she brings extra groceries without saying a word. Sometimes she fixes my tools before I even notice they're broken. She never asks for thanks. She just does. Because some people don't love loudly. They love in action. In silence. In staying. The other day, she leaned on the railing and said, "You know, you smile more now." I didn't say anything. Just looked at her. And thought. So do you. So that's my story. Not a happy ending. Not a sad one either. Just honest. Just earned. Because I didn't win. I didn't lose. I chose. And sometimes, that's the strongest thing a man can do.